96 hours, 4 full days, and from the most powerful office in women's basketball, not a single word. No press release, no statement, no tweet, no emergency memo, no quiet phone call that leaked to the press, nothing. Just 4 days of complete, deliberate, institutional silence while one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet was left to walk into a hostile arena with zero protection from the league that profits off her name every single night. That's where we are right now. And if you think this is just another social media controversy that blew over by Tuesday morning, you haven't been paying attention. Because this isn't about one player's hot mic moment. This isn't about a fan account posting something graphic on a Friday night. This isn't even really about Tiffany Hayes. This is about a pattern, a documented, time-stamped, receipted pattern of selective enforcement that the WNBA's commissioner has been quietly running for years, and a week that finally forced it into the open in a way that can't be walked back. So let's go through it, all of it. Every window the league had to act and didn't. Every comparison that makes the silence impossible to explain away. Every piece of the public record that's sitting there, waiting for someone with a microphone and a platform to connect the dots. Because the dots, they connect. And once you see the full picture, you'll understand why 96 hours of nothing is actually the loudest thing Cathy Engelbert has ever said. It started the way a lot of these stories start, with a game that looked normal on the surface. Friday night, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Indianapolis. The Indiana Fever hosting the Golden State Valkyries. By the numbers, it was a solid game. Caitlin Clark drops 22 points and 9 assists. The Fever win 90-82. Tiffany Hayes comes off the bench and finishes with 19. A strong performance. Nothing flagged, nothing unusual. On paper, it reads like a normal regular season result. Then, the hot mic fires. Before Hayes walks into her post-game press conference, a microphone catches her mid-conversation. She doesn't know she's being recorded, and what comes out of her mouth is this, verbatim, as broadcast and later confirmed by the Bleacher Report clip that would go on to rack up 641,000 views. They're never going to start calling the fouls on her. If they did, she would never be able to play the game. Read that again slowly. A professional player caught on a live broadcast microphone saying, in plain English, that the officiating in the WNBA is being deliberately tilted in favor of one specific player, said by a player who just spent the night on the floor guarding her. 641,000 views. The clip spreads through the weekend like a brush fire. Sports media picks it up. Fan accounts screenshot it. Comment sections explode. By Saturday morning, it's everywhere, and the league office, which monitors its own broadcast content in real time, absolutely knows it exists. That's the first window. Friday night, post-game, live broadcast clip going viral within hours. The league had a clean opportunity right then to say something simple. We're aware of the comments, we're reviewing the situation. Player safety and respect are central to our values. 6 sentences, 2 minutes of prep time. Done. They said nothing. But the hot mic was only the beginning, because then the weekend happened. Saturday, a fan account posts something, and this is where the story shifts from uncomfortable to genuinely alarming. The language in the post gets graphic. Without going into every detail, the account discusses being ready to support if Hayes had a physical altercation with Clark on the floor. Not metaphorical contact, not competitive basketball. A post framed around the idea of Hayes physically harming another player and being supported for it. Outkick, which is Fox News owned and has been one of the outlets most aggressively covering the Clark story all season, reports that Hayes engaged with the post, did not delete it, did not distance herself from it, engaged. Outkick's characterization of Hayes' action as a cosign is interpretive. The fan account did not explicitly name Caitlin Clark in the post, so the connection between the post and Clark specifically is a reading, not a direct statement. That's a real distinction, and anyone covering this honestly has to acknowledge it.
But here's what is not interpretive. What the league office did in response to multiple outlets reporting this story. That's not a reading, that's not speculation. That's just a day count and a blank press release page. And that blank page is the real story. Because the moment you apply even basic journalistic standards, the moment you ask, what would this league do if the names were different, the silence stops being explainable and starts being a policy. This is the exercise, and it's not comfortable, but it's necessary. Imagine for a moment that it's not Tiffany Hayes and Caitlin Clark. Imagine the Indiana Fever's most active veteran, say Sophie Cunningham, who has been one of the most visible Fever players in media this season, posts something or engages with something that could be read to endorse physical harm to a player on another team. She doesn't delete it, she lets it sit. The post circulates through the weekend. How long does the investigation take to open? Not 96 hours, not 48. You're talking about a league response within the news cycle that same day. Because Sophie Cunningham engaging with a post like that about, let's say, Arike Ogunbowale or Brianna Stewart or AJ Wilson, the league's response is immediate and it's loud. There's a formal review. There's a statement about player safety. There's a conversation about the league's zero-tolerance framework for incitement, which Engelbert herself spent the last 3 years publicly constructing and promoting. Now make it worse. Imagine it's not Cunningham. Imagine it's Aaliyah Boston, one of the league's most respected young players, a face of the new WNBA generation. Imagine Boston engages with a post describing physical harm to a player on a rival team. The statement goes out before the end of the business day. There's a fine. There's potentially a suspension. There's a press conference where the commissioner stands in front of a microphone and explains that the WNBA does not tolerate this, not from anyone, not ever. Now take it all the way to the extreme. Imagine it's Caitlin Clark herself. Imagine Clark engages with a fan post that describes physical harm to AJ Wilson, the league's reigning MVP, the face of the Las Vegas Aces franchise. You don't need to imagine what happens. You already know. The investigation is open before the weekend is over. The suspension is served before the next road trip. The press release is on the WNBA.com homepage with Engelbert's name at the bottom of it. And not a single Caitlin Clark fan is asking where the commissioner is, because she's in front of a microphone explaining the league's commitment to player safety, the league's zero-tolerance policy for incitement, and the league's absolute stance that there is no space for hate in the WNBA. Same league, same policy, same hate speech infrastructure, same commissioner who built it and spent years citing it in interviews. Just a different player in the post. That's not a theory. That's the receipt this week is putting on the table. The question isn't what Hayes did. The question is what the league does and doesn't do, depending on whose player's name is in the story. Let's go through the timeline, not impressionistically, specifically. Because one of the things the league office is counting on is that the general public won't do the actual day-by-day breakdown. So, here it is. Friday night, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Clark drops 22, Hayes finishes with 19. Hot mic fires post-game. Bleacher Report clip is live and spreading within hours. The league has a post-game media window. Communications staff monitors broadcast clips in real time as a standard part of game operations. Window 1, open and available. Statement issued? None. Saturday morning, WNBA official channels do their standard morning posting. Highlights from Friday night's games, engagement content, the usual Saturday rollout. Outkick publishes its first report on the social media engagement. The Hayes post story is now in the media ecosystem, not just in fan accounts. It's picked up by AOL. It's picked up by WFMD. It is in the press. Window 2, open and available. Statement issued? None. Saturday afternoon, the story is still growing. Fan accounts are documenting it. Sports media is beginning to aggregate. The league has a full afternoon availability window. Window 3, open and available. Statement issued? None. Monday, Memorial Day. Here's the one that tells you everything you need to know. The league's social channels are active on Memorial Day. They post Memorial Day content, they post about Sunday's slate of games, they post, and this one is almost impossible to overstate, the league posts about Caitlin Clark grand marshalling the Indianapolis 500. The league is happy to use Clark's name and image for promotional content about a national event. They post about it, they celebrate it, and in the same window on that same Monday, with the Hayes story now 72 hours old and sitting in every major sports outlet, no statement about Hayes, no statement about player safety, nothing.
Tuesday. Stephanie White, the Fever's head coach, does her game week media availability in Indianapolis. Reporters ask questions. White says nothing publicly on the record. Kelly Krakowiak, Indiana's president of basketball operations, does not appear at a podium. No statement from the league office. No statement from the WNBA Players Association, the organization that is supposed to protect all players in the league, not just the ones with the right optics in a given news cycle. Window after window after window, all of them open, all of them unused. That's not an oversight. Leagues don't accidentally miss 5 days of media windows on a story that's in every major sports outlet. There's a communications team. There's a PR infrastructure. There are people whose entire job is monitoring what's being said about the league in real time and crafting responses. The silence isn't an accident. The silence is a choice. And the only group that didn't stay quiet through all of it was Caitlin Clark's audience. They've been carrying this conversation for 4 days straight, documenting the timeline, screenshotting the blank press release page, asking publicly, repeatedly, in plain language, where is the commissioner? The commissioner is exactly where she always is when the player who needs protection is the one wearing number 22. Here's the part nobody wants to say out loud, because saying it out loud means acknowledging something about this league that a lot of people have a personal and professional investment in denying. May 2024, Angel Reese, Chicago Sky. After a game in Indianapolis, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, same building, same city, Reese claims that Indiana Fever fans hurled racial slurs at her. It's a serious allegation, the kind that, if true, represents a catastrophic failure of the league's venue security and a genuine threat to player safety and dignity. Here's the evidentiary record at the time the claim was made. No video evidence, no audio evidence, no independent witness corroboration outside of Reese's own statement. The claim was unverified, completely unverified, a single player's account with nothing substantiating it. The league opens a formal investigation within days, 10 days of review, a formal examination of Indiana fans, of Gainbridge Fieldhouse's operational conduct, of the Fever's own role in policing the arena environment. The language coming out of the league office during those 10 days is consistent and loud. We take player safety seriously. We have no space for hate. We will not tolerate incitement against any of our players. That language is in press releases, it's in statements, it's coming from the commissioner's office. At the end of 10 days, the league announces it could not substantiate the claim. No evidence, no discipline, no further action. But the investigation happened. The language happened. The institutional weight of the WNBA was brought to bear on an allegation with zero verified supporting evidence, and it took 10 days of formal review to reach that conclusion. Now sit with that for a moment and look at this week. Multiple outlets reporting, not one outlet, multiple. A broadcast clip with 641,000 views, a documented social media engagement reported by Outkick and picked up by several other platforms, a specific player whose name is in every single story, a game scheduled for Tuesday night where that player would be on the same floor, in the same uniform, guarding the player at the center of the story. The evidentiary record here, the verifiable, documented public record, is objectively more substantial than what the league had in front of it in May 2024. Day count this week, 4. Investigation opened, none. Press release issued, none. Hate policy invoked, none. Commissioner statement, none. Same league, same commissioner, same hate policy infrastructure, same supposed zero-tolerance framework for incitement that Engelbert has been citing in interviews and press conferences for 3 years. Different player in the center of the story. The audience has done this math. The audience has been doing this math for a while. The commissioner, apparently, is the only person still pretending the numbers don't add up. And here's the thing, this isn't the first time. That's the part that the league is really desperately hoping doesn't get connected to the current story. Because if you connect it, the pattern doesn't look like negligence anymore. It looks like something more deliberate. September 2025. Napheesa Collier, Minnesota Lynx. Before a playoff game, the highest stakes moment of the WNBA calendar, Collier walks into a press conference and drops a bombshell. She describes a private conversation she had with Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, and the quotes she attributes to the commissioner, sourced and reported verbatim by the Philadelphia Inquirer and Sportico, are extraordinary.
According to Collier, Engelbert told her that Caitlin Clark, the player whose off-court earnings fund every WNBA media rights pitch in existence, should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court because without the platform the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything. That's one quote. And then there's this one. Players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal I got them. Read those again. The commissioner of a professional sports league in a private conversation with one of her players, reportedly telling that player that the league's biggest commercial asset should be on her knees in gratitude, that the platform creates the player, not the other way around, that a woman generating hundreds of millions of dollars in league value, the number that made the media rights deal possible, the number every broadcast partner is paying for, should feel lucky. Engelbert denied saying it, said she was disheartened that Collier shared the conversation publicly. The league's response was to frame it as a private matter that shouldn't have gone public, rather than to address what was actually said. What happened next was significant. Stephen A. Smith, a first-name brand in sports media, someone whose opinions move markets, reportedly called for Engelbert's resignation on national television. Sheryl Swoopes, three-time WNBA champion, MVP, Hall of Famer, one of the most respected voices in the history of women's basketball, publicly criticized the commissioner. And Caitlin Clark herself responded, on the record, one sentence, quote, "B said it all." That was 8 months ago. 8 months. And the same commissioner is in the same chair, same title, same office, same platform. And now, 8 months later, the same player is at the center of another controversy, and the same institutional silence is the league's chosen response. B said it all. 8 months later, Engelbert still hasn't said anything. And the gap between what Clark's endorsement partner said and what the commissioner of her own league said is the entire story of this week in one comparison. Tomorrow night, and by the time some of you are watching this, tonight, Caitlin Clark walks out of the visitors' tunnel at Chase Center in San Francisco. Fever Navy, number 22, same number every WNBA broadcast leads with. Same number on every league press release. Same number attached to the viewership records and the TV deals and the merchandise sales that made Cathy Engelbert's commissioner tenure the most commercially successful in league history. She'll warm up. The lights will be on. 22,000 fans will be inside Chase Center, millions more watching at home. And Tiffany Hayes, number 15, violet and purple, will be in uniform, on the bench when Indiana takes the floor, coming in off the bench in the first half because that's how Coach Natalie Ness has been rotating her. And the second Hayes checks in, she'll be assigned to Caitlin Clark. Think about what that means in context. A player who said on a live microphone clip 1 week ago that the officials should never call fouls on Clark because it would prevent her from playing. A player whose social media engagement was characterized by multiple outlets as putting her name next to content about physically harming Clark. A player that the league office has not, to this hour, not once, not in any format, said a single public word about. She will be guarding Clark tonight, with the league's silence as the only context either one of them is walking onto that floor. The legal exposure here is not hypothetical.
If Hayes makes contact and Clark goes down, if there is any moment tonight that can be framed as intentional, targeted, or connected to the week's narrative, the civil litigation conversations have already started in lawyers' heads. The legal civil rights complaint framework about a league office that applies its hate policy when one type of player is named and withholds it when another type of player is named, that case is already being constructed. The league knows this. Every sophisticated attorney who follows sports media knows this. The silence doesn't insulate the league from that exposure. If anything, it deepens it. What tonight actually tests is whether the system corrects itself without being formally forced to. Whether the officials who have presumably seen the hot mic clip 641,000 other people have seen make their own adjustment on the floor. Whether Hayes, facing a national audience in a high-profile matchup, makes her own decision to stay clean. Whether Krakowiak shows up courtside in San Francisco or stays in Indianapolis. Whether Engelbert releases a statement before tip-off, even a vague, carefully worded one, or waits to see whether her job requires one after the game is over. Those aren't dramatic questions. Those are the actual operational questions facing everyone connected to this situation tonight. And every single one of them exists because the commissioner decided that 96 hours of silence was a viable strategy.
Here's why this story is bigger than one game, one player, and one commissioner who chose not to put out a press release. Professional sports leagues derive their authority from consistent enforcement. That's the entire foundation. The rules mean something because they apply the same way every time to every person in every situation. The moment enforcement becomes selective, the moment the answer to "will the league act" depends on who's asking and who's the subject, the authority collapses. Not immediately, not visibly, but structurally. The foundation cracks. The WNBA spent years building a very specific brand identity around progressive values, player empowerment, and social justice advocacy. Engelbert has been vocal about the league's commitment to a safe environment for all its players. She has cited the hate policy in press releases. She has talked about zero tolerance for incitement in interviews. She built that framework and she took public credit for it, and she used it as a selling point to broadcast partners and sponsors and media partners who wanted to be associated with a league that stood for something. This week, the league's own documented behavior revealed the gap between the framework as described and the framework as applied. And that gap, that specific, measurable, time-stamped gap between what the league says its values are and what the league actually does when those values require action, is the story that will follow Cathy Engelbert for the rest of her tenure, longer probably. Because audiences remember receipts, especially when the receipts are this clean. May 2024, unverified claim, no evidence, 10-day investigation, full institutional weight deployed. May 2026, multi-outlet reporting, documented public content, broadcast clip with 641,000 views, 4 days, 0 response. Same league, same policy, different player. The WNBA Players Association's silence is its own chapter in this story. Their entire mandate is player protection, all players, not the players who poll well in certain demographics, not the players whose stories fit a particular narrative, not the players whose controversies are easier to defend in certain media circles, all players. The moment a player is at the center of a documented threat story and the Players Association says nothing for 4 days, the Players Association has made a statement, just not the one they're supposed to make. Here's the most important thing to understand about institutional silence, because there's a tendency to treat it as neutral, as the absence of a position, as inaction rather than action. That framing is wrong, and it's wrong in a way that matters enormously in situations exactly like this one.
When a league office has a communications infrastructure, a social media team, a PR department, a commissioner with a public profile and a standing media relationship, and that office says nothing for 96 hours on a story that is in every major sports outlet, the silence is not neutral. The silence is a message. It is a deliberate, chosen, operationally executed message. And the message is, this situation does not require our intervention. That message reaches every player in the league. It reaches the player at the center of the story, who now knows that when her name is in a threat story, the league will not act. It reaches every other player watching, who now has data, real, current, documented data about how the league responds to different types of threat reports, depending on who's involved. It reaches the fans, the broadcast partners, the sponsors, the media partners, who made their association with this league partly based on the commissioner's public statements about player safety and zero tolerance.
The silence tells all of them the same thing. The policy applies selectively, and everyone now knows which direction the selectivity runs. Tamika Catchings, Indiana legend, fever icon, one of the great voices in the WNBA history, used to say that the hardest part of being the franchise player wasn't the game, it was the silence between the games, the waiting, the not knowing, the carrying of everything the team needed while the cameras were off and the arena was empty. This week, Caitlin Clark has lived in that silence for 96 hours. Not the silence of a quiet off day, the silence of a league that knows what's being said about her, knows the story is everywhere, and chose, consciously, deliberately, with full awareness of what it was doing, to say nothing. So here's where everything lands, not as drama, not as outrage content, just as a plain question that the evidence demands. If the WNBA's policy, player safety framework, and zero-tolerance stance on incitement mean what the commissioner says they mean, if they are genuinely universal, genuinely consistent, genuinely applied the same way regardless of which player is named, then the last 96 hours make no sense. There is no operational explanation for why May 2024 produced a 10-day investigation on zero evidence, and May 2026 produced nothing on multiple outlets and documented content. The policies don't produce that outcome unless someone is making a choice about which player they apply to. And if someone is making that choice, if the enforcement is selective, if the policy is a framework that gets deployed for some players and withheld for others, then the policy isn't what Engelbert has been saying it is, and the league isn't what she's been selling it as, and every broadcast partner and sponsor who paid for an association with those values has a reasonable question about what they actually bought. Tonight at Chase Center, some version of an answer arrives whether the league wants it to or not. Either the game goes clean and the story becomes about what almost happened, or the game produces a moment and the story becomes about what the league's 4-day silence made possible. Or Engelbert puts out a statement before tip-off and tries to spend one sentence closing 4 days of silence with damage control language that the audience will hold up next to the 2024 timeline and evaluate on its merits. Any of those outcomes is the league's own making. The commissioner had 96 hours and dozens of windows and the full institutional infrastructure of a professional sports league at her disposal. She had precedent, her own precedent, documented, time-stamped, cited in her own press releases for exactly how to respond to a player safety story when the league wants to be seen taking it seriously. She chose not to use any of it, and now the audience knows the receipt. And the receipt is the one that doesn't go away. When a league spends 4 years building a brand around the idea that it protects all its players, and then the documentation shows it protects some of its players, what you have isn't a communications problem, it's a credibility problem. And credibility problems in professional sports only ever get solved one way, with actions that are more visible, more consistent, and more undeniable than the silence that created them in the first place.
The commissioner has had 96 hours to start. Tomorrow night, tonight, we find out what 97 costs.